Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Thrive Co-Living Communities podcast. My name is Jennifer Hooper. I'm here along with my co-host, Mark Stein, who is the founder of Thrive Co-Living. How's it
Hi
going,
there.
Mark?
Good. Glad to be
Good.
back.
Today you're in Florida, right?
I am, and so
Excellent.
glad to be here.
I'm in Arizona, and it's absolutely beautiful here. I'm very thankful to be here as well. And we are joined today by Aileen Curtin. Aileen is the Dean of Education of the Institute for Leadership and Lifelong Learning. And I'm so excited to dive into this podcast because in exploring your website, Aileen, I just connected with so much of what's available there to read. So let's start off by having you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then when you feel like it's the right time, tell us a little bit about how the Institute came to be.
Sure, and thank you both for the opportunity to be here. I am originally from Ireland, born, raised, educated, lived in Ireland actually until about the age of 27. And through the opportunity of a green card lottery, I had the opportunity to come to the United States and I was 27 years of age at the time, and I thought, why not? I was single, I wasn't attached, and I came to the United States. I had an aunt in Kansas City. She was served as my financial sponsor, and I always lovingly think of her as one of the reasons that I was able to make it when I first came to the United States when I relocated. So in a nutshell, I'm an educator. I was an elementary Gaelic language teacher in Ireland and went back to college in Kansas City, became an elementary teacher there, got married, relocated to Dallas, Texas. So I want you to visualize what it was like for me coming from the island of Ireland that is so green and lush, surrounded by the ocean, and found myself in North Texas thinking, oh my goodness, what have I done? If you know anything about North Texas, it is a beautiful place to raise a family, but in terms of nature, it's very flat, and it took me many years. I ended up actually living there for about 25 years. I always lovingly say I had to learn my life lessons and grow up. And in a nutshell, I got a master's degree there in education, pursued a PhD, and ended up moving into the university system for Texas Wesleyan University. So for 30 years or so, I call it my career was teacher education, and I was the chair of the Doctor of Education program there. So I've had a lifetime career in education. And I told my husband, I said, I do not want to spend the third phase of my life in North Texas. I know the beauty's in the sky, but I miss the water. And so by chance, we came to St. Petersburg, Florida on business in 2012. That was where I fell in love with this area. I actually live right on the Boca Ciega Bay overlooking St. Pete Beach. And so we moved here, relocated in 2018. And so I resigned from my position in Texas. And I had a desire to still, always at the back of my mind, I always wanted to be involved in spiritual education, to be involved in lifelong learning, but something that was different from the career that I had left. And I am also an ordained minister, and I had connected to Unity many, many years ago. So when I came to St. Petersburg, I connected with First Unity Spiritual Campus, and I met Reverend Temple Hayes, and she is the vision behind the Institute for Leadership and Lifelong Learning. And I actually approached her to teach yoga. I was in, and we started to talk and connect, and she said, I've had this idea for years about having an open university where there are no boxes, no rules, where we can offer a course on wellness, spirituality, health, and where we can offer a different way of educating and training leaders. And there is a quote that Reverend Temple Hayes loves to use from Victor Hugo that says, there's nothing stronger than all the armies of the world than an idea whose time has come. And so she had this idea, but and when we met, she said, could you help me create an institute for leadership and lifelong learning? And I said, wow, my whole career, the last 30 years has prepared me to now move into this. So that was more or less how the idea began. We started planning in 2018. We started collecting a group of people, of leaders. You can see we have a leadership council of people all over the country, and we started forming the mission, the vision, and I am the curriculum, the instruction. I am the, how would you say, the lady behind the scenes who helps to organize the courses, who helps to guide faculty in creating courses. So that was more or less how it started. We actually opened in November the 11th, 2019. We opened with approximately, I believe, 10 or 11 courses. And then, of course, COVID came. And we have since, during this time of COVID, now we have 33 courses, 22 faculty, contributing faculty, and we are growing and expanding. And so the mission of the ILI, which stands for Institute for Leadership and Lifelong Learning International, is we want it to be a place where people can come at a reasonable cost, continue learning, but also the vision was that for people, women maybe in Tanzania who could not afford to take a course for $125 could actually together as a community each contribute $5 and together take a course. And a lot of the underlying philosophies underlying a lot of the courses is positive, uplifting spirituality. We are not prescribing any particular religion or faith. Everything is about love, opening up the heart. We consider our mission to be igniting the soul's, we are igniting the soul's purpose, opening up the heart of the world. So if you've had so that's itself in a nutshell how it came about. So Reverend Temple Hayes and myself, we are the co-founders, and we have since built and established the team. And our goal is to build more classes, more courses, and we want to keep ourselves open to grow organically. We're not sure what it will look like. I will tell you right now, we did not even know that we would look like this in terms of we're open to whatever happens, to whatever grows and changes. So hopefully I haven't chatted too long, but at least brings you to this point. So
that's awesome. I have a ton of questions, but Mark, it's your turn. What's yours? First one.
It looks like you sort of have a two-pronged approach. One, developing a series of courses, miscellaneous courses around spirituality, and then also to prepare spiritual leaders. That looks like one thread.
mm-hmm.
Can you talk about that thread a little bit? And then probably we'll spend more time talking about your assorted course offerings.
Sure. So initially the goal was to fill this niche for how do we get more ministers, spiritual leaders out into the world that can come out with a different model than the existing model. So what happens is if you go through seminaries or you go through other licensed ordained programs, it can take anywhere from 6 to 7 years. It can take, everybody is shuttled through the same number of courses. There's a heavy emphasis on a certain curriculum. So our vision was to create a program that would take people through in as little as 6 months to 18 months. Our whole leadership model is probably about $5,000 compared to $25,000, or that's a non-accredited, of course, program compared to a university system. So our spiritual leadership program is designed to develop the person, not just fill somebody's head with courses on Bible studies or different religions. So what we notice is that many spiritual leaders come out of programs and they lack a lot of confidence in who they are and in their ability to just trust their own ability to speak and to deliver a message. And so our leadership courses are the first one. So somebody who wants to take our leadership development program we have an admissions process. Each individual applies, tells us as much as they can about themselves, and we look at that individual and we look at what they've done in their previous life and career, and we look at where we can help them bridge that gap, be it in their intuitive ability, their confidence level, their ability to speak, their ability, whatever it is. A lot of us carry a lot of conditioned, limiting beliefs. And so even if you go through any kind of a spiritual leadership program that's leading to ordination or being a spiritual leader, if we ourselves consider ourselves less than, how can we stand in front of a group of people and deliver a positive message? So in a way, that's how it's different. We look at the individual, we pick and choose with their input courses that they need or they would like to take. And the additional component of our program that's different from many other programs out there is we have a mentoring component. So each of our students, as it will, who are leading towards spiritual leadership is actually mentored every 2 weeks. And that is a private coaching session that they have along with the courses that they are taking. So we bundle our courses we have 6 modules. So somebody who enters goes through an admissions process, and then they go through approximately 4 to 6 courses every 2 months for a total of 12 months. And we're now at a phase where we have our students who are in our spiritual leadership program who are getting ready now to enter in their internship, which they're about to begin. So that's the one track. So we take people from where they are. I myself, I've gone through programs and nobody has ever asked me anything about myself. They, in other programs, they just take you, okay, this is the curriculum. You'll take this semester and you're going to go through this for 6 or 7 years. And then you have all of these tests and all of these hoops to go through. And so in our program, we don't have any of that. It's very reflective, it's self-paced. Our students can stop, they can go at their own time, and when they're ready to move on to the next module, they move on. There is nobody pushing them or saying you're going to hurry along, you've got a deadline, you've got assignments. There are assignments, but they are reflective. So there's not a got you quiz or anything that would say you're not worthy, so you need to drop out of the program or we're going to drop you out. So we believe in developing the individual from where he or she comes from, and then moving them towards wholeness and helping them become the spiritual leader or that they want to be. And by the way, ordination is not something they have to do. Anybody who wants to get ordained at the end has that option. So many of our spiritual leaders will go back or are in their workplace, but leading from a more heart space as opposed to leading from the head. So that's the one option. And then the other side is people can randomly choose courses that they need or something that they are drawn to in their life, whether it's health, parenting, wellness, spirituality, metaphysics, and we have only begun. So I want you to understand that what you see on the website is really just has come about in probably the last 12 months.
Pretty
so
amazing.
who knows where we will be in another 12 months. So this
Right.
is just the beginning, and we see ourselves as a river, as a path, and we have no expectation of a certain outcome where it's going. So we just know that we are in this energy, this flow of getting more of this message, this access out into the world.
Based on something that you said, I think you may have answered the question, but I just want to make sure I understand. You said students going through the ordained program do it at their own pace. So these courses are not live. They're not necessarily going through a cohort. They're pre-recorded and they just move when
Yes.
they're ready.
Correct.
All right.
So our model, that's where we've started now. That's how we began. So the idea was, you know yourself, if you're a teacher and educator, the traditional paradigm is students come into your classroom, it's live, that interaction, and this is a way of, so the sessions are recorded. And with COVID, we have now found that more of our faculty are able to record at home, you know, just like we're doing here. So they're able to record, create their own recording, share their own screen. The courses we had at the beginning, we had people coming in, recording with the videographer, and now there is much more freedom of access to more faculty to create more courses. And our focus is not on a perfection. Our focus is on the transmission of information. It doesn't have to look like Hollywood where it's perfect. And yes, so for now, everything is pre-recorded, and that way it's like a video library. And our goal was to start with that model. It's simple, meaning that there are anywhere from 5 to 6 videos embedded in each course. Each course is probably a maximum of maybe 2 to 2.5 hours total of video. And then there's additional, you know, reflective questions, PDFs. So for now, that's the model that we use to create it. And it's powered by Thinkific. You may be familiar with that platform. So yes.
Amazing.
What was that platform again?
Thinkific. So it's a learning platform that is fairly intuitive, not to take away from your word, Jennifer, but it's a fairly easy to use for anybody who purchases a course. There's not too many buttons or too many things to figure out. You simply start, you play, and you move on to the next session. And so, and you could stop, and the student gets a notification. They're 30% complete with the course, if they're 70%, and then when they're finished, and then if they want to go on to the next course. So that's how it's set up for now.
I have one more question before we get too far, Mark. So I'm keeping the microphone.
I know I talk a lot, don't I?
You know, sometimes a topic is more in my bailiwick, and
that's true.
It's more in yours. And
yeah.
This is definitely more in yours.
Okay.
So don't hesitate.
All right. Wonderful. I think that if you asked 100 people what their definition of spirituality is, you would get 100 different definitions. So I'm curious, I know you mentioned your program is non-denominational, but what does spirituality mean to your institute?
Love. Anything with love. So if you think of
goosebumps.
You may be familiar with A Course in Miracles. The opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is fear. So so our message is love, that no matter who you are, what you are, whatever in the past, there's nothing that ever separates you from the divinity, the love that is within you. And the other basis would be, if you're familiar with First Unity, is unity, new thought. So new thought arises from the teachings of Charles Fillmore, from Ernest Holmes, from any of those new thought thinkers. So we, of course, have evolved some. So the essence of new thought is love, finding your way back to finding the divinity within you, we express here on this earth as expressions of God, but the God of your understanding. We welcome all paths, all faiths, and we celebrate all faiths at First Unity, and we welcome all faiths.
What
Thank
would you
you.
say that what would you say the tie-in is between this particular church, Unity Church in St. Pete, and the Institute? And what are the limitations of that connection?
So the tie-in right now is at First Unity, we teach you spirituality, self-love. ILI is we show you how to do it. So they are interconnected. ILI is the learning platform that's attached to not necessarily to First Unity, but First Unity does not, we consider ourselves a spiritual campus, not a church. The church is within you. But some Unity churches maybe around the country are a little different in how they express that. So right now, if you go to the website, you actually can go to firstunity.org, and you will see that First Unity is here and the Institute is side by side. So, but we are two separate nonprofits. But right now we are interconnected because Reverend Temple Hayes is the spiritual leader of First Unity. She's also the visionary behind the Institute. So right now we are together, we are interconnected. So one is the spirituality, taking care of your essence, your soul, your spirit, and the Institute will show you how, but it is not necessary to be doing both. You can be doing one without the other. I hope, did that answer it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say, just to add on to that, when we started initially, our goal was to see if we found that we still kept coming back to our roots, which was the spiritual campus, the community, and especially here in St. Petersburg. Temple Hayes has a huge following. She is well known in the New Thought community. She's both an ordained Unity and a New Thought minister. So it's a way of bringing these two, not seeing them as separate, but bringing it together in a oneness, in a cohesive way. So it was our way of bringing this all back together.
There was something else on your website that caught my eye, which is on your About page, a term called consciousness expansion.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about that a little bit and what that means?
So consciousness, so if you've ever listened or read anything in New Thought, consciousness is who we are. So if you think about what is expressing through us is energy. So whatever we label it, you can label it love, God, people have so many labels. So consciousness is what we are always expanding and moving into, moving higher. So if you think about when we were children, we had a consciousness of, that met us at that time of our lives. So every time we learn, every time we grow, we are expanding our consciousness, our awareness of who we are. So, and it's also a way of understanding how we are waking up in the world. So I give you an example of that. When I grew up in Ireland, I grew up at a time I was raised Catholic, fear of God. I grew up with sin. I grew up with so many limiting beliefs about who I was. And I was previously married and divorced, and I carried such shame and such blame. And because I started reading and I started learning more about New Thought and about who I was in consciousness, is that that I was able to expand and move out of that And so when the more we learn and the more we grow, the more we expand in consciousness and awareness. And I want you to understand this, at the generation that I grew up in Ireland, that now in Ireland today, because of this expansion of consciousness, we each do that in our own way, in our awareness, that now in Ireland there is legal divorce, there's same-sex marriage, there is an unbelievable shift in consciousness in the country that I grew up in. So it's hard to put a word on it, but consciousness to me or to us represents the collective. So if we're all moving towards a higher consciousness or a better way of living, if I change myself, I'm also going to raise the consciousness of those around me. And if more and more, and every person I touch, and we lift the consciousness and the awareness of the collective. So it's a very metaphysical
Beautiful.
word, Jennifer,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
that's my way of explaining. I always tell people, if you look at where we've come from, look at our past, and look at the consciousness of the collective of our peoples, and then if you can see how, even though at times we think, are we really going or growing? We are. Sometimes we're just not able to see it at the time, but certainly that moving forward towards love, towards understanding, and whatever you want to label consciousness, it can be something different to different people depending on your faith tradition. I like to think of consciousness as love, expanding who I am in spirit. I certainly, yes, but constantly growing. And so that everything that we feed our senses with, whether it's in a class, a book, whatever we learn, whatever we read, whatever we choose to accept into our lives is either expanding our consciousness or limiting it. So
I'm so aligned with everything that you're
my
I'm
goodness,
nodding. I'm like, I love the consciousness, the
yes,
metaphysical, the divine,
yes.
and all of that. But Mark, I'm turning it over to you. Maybe you can tie it together with, this institute and co-living or education in general.
Sure. And Jennifer, I even saw you shiver at one moment.
I know, like I get so excited. Yeah.
So, but before we sort of dovetail with Thrive and some of the things that we're interested in, I'm gathering that you're open to having more course instructors. So, and I see this one thread as a way to have courses that are not part of the spiritual leadership, and a whole variety of them. And we'll let you talk about how people can contact you in a moment. But what's your vision for expanding your course base and invitations to instructors, and tell us a little bit logistically of how it works for
Sure.
somebody to offer a course through. And
Yes.
by the way, as my day job is as a marketer, and the 3 L's, I'm in Illy, I get concerned about whether people will find you looking for 2 L's as in ILLI. So maybe afterwards we can talk about ILLI to make sure that they find you. But anyway.
Yes, that's right. And that's a very good point. And the significance of the L's is actually, if you look at it, if you look at our logo, is we have the I, which is the little candle, and the one at the end, the light of the word, the beginning and the end, light. And the 3 L's actually represent one. So if you look at it, so it came about, we opened on 11/11. And so the significance, if you know anything, I'm not a numerologist, but
I know a numerologist if you want to talk to one.
So the significance of the number has to do with 111.
Yeah.
And all of the ones lined up. But you're right, Mark, because at first, people said, all of the L's, and so that was another reason why we dovetailed back again towards First Unity website, because that is a lot of our, we'll say our market and our clients, our customers as well. so that they could find us. But yeah, it's a little bit, yeah, but for sure. But you're absolutely right. And that's where we are also in this space of getting our brand out into the world. And I'm not a marketing lady, I'm an educator. So, but going back to your question of how we can build courses. So what we do is we have an application process on the website. So anybody who's interested can go to ili.org. That's I3LSI.org. And if you look around there, there is a button that says faculty, and there is a faculty application. We do like to know who the faculty is, background. We want to keep true to our mission and our vision. And so if anybody is interested in creating, that's where they would start. And that generates an email that comes to me, dean@ili.org. And then usually so that's where the conversation starts. So somebody has a course that they want to teach, and they're saying, you know what, I'm really interested in learning more. We have, so that's where the conversation starts. And I guide the faculty through maybe there's something, a course that they've already created, maybe they have videos, maybe they'd like to do an introduction to their work. And the way it's set up is once the application is approved and accepted, then a potential faculty can go ahead and create, or maybe share something that they already have. And so the way we set it up is we have a royalty that goes back. Each course that is sold, there's a residual royalty that goes back to the faculty member. And so whoever creates a course with us becomes one of our esteemed faculty. And we, of course, market, and we have a wonderful team. Amy Bowen, who is behind the scenes, who has created a beautiful website, and Bowen Imagery. And we also have with us right now, you may know Kathy Perry. She's been helping us with our marketing. And so what we do, and we also have a blog post. We have found that our blog posts were people expressed a lot of interest in that. So once the course is created, we usually will ask a faculty member then to create a blog. We send out blog, we promote the course, and we are new, so we're still in the process of building and growing. So, but I am the guide, I'm the curriculum and the instruction lady. And there are many people who have never created a course, who don't understand scope and sequence, how do you introduce, how much is too much, pacing. And so I'm able to help. And I work with many people one-on-one. Some people require very little help or instruction from me, but I'm available to guide that process with the creation of a course as well. And so basically they just need to reach out to me, and we begin the conversation.
Awesome. So from reviewing our website, I think that I'm sure you were drawn to the education component, and we're definitely advocates of lifelong learning. And part of our vision is to create a co-learning space that would be integrated with a co-working space, so that people of all ages could come together and share interests and help each other. Envision like a tote board in the room with each person's name and what they're interested in or what they're interested in sharing, and then have that same tote board available throughout the community virtually, so that no matter where you are, you can find out what people are interested in and collaborate and that sort of thing. And I definitely see some possibilities of us working together. But the other thing that we had in mind when we scheduled this is that we feel like our concept would be very appealing to unity folks, mindfulness folks, Unitarians. So I'd love to hear from your perspective um, what your thoughts are about the concept. So
I think it's wonderful. That's exactly, if you think about, that's why churches, many churches formed years ago. And at when First Unity Spiritual Campus before COVID, we had so many classes, we had so many courses. And that in a way was the vision for the ILI, is that capture some of these, because not everybody with our work schedule is able to physically be in a place. And so that was one of the reasons why we wanted to, to videotape these courses, create them so there's access for anybody anywhere in the world. So absolutely, I love the idea of, particularly because you're talking about a virtual space. And we are that is very much what we want to do. We want to eliminate barriers and hurdles for people to gain access to knowledge and information. When the World Wide Web first started, people used to say, "Oh my goodness, look at all of us. We could ask Alexa, we can ask Siri a question, and we're all, so the whole internet and the virtual space is amazing for lifelong learning. We don't have to pay to go through a university system anymore, or encyclopedia. So knowledge is more accessible virtually. And absolutely, we are very open to going back to the word consciousness. Isn't that how we expand our consciousness? By learning and by growing. And the more we learn about other cultures, different people, where they come from, that's how we learn and expand. If I had stayed in Ireland, for example, and I was still on the farm that I grew up in, think about how different my consciousness would be than it is today, having traveled and done all of the experiences that I have. And we very much believe that every course, every book, every person that you meet that teaches you something new is expanding your consciousness. So I love the idea of that virtual space, for sure.
and actually, our goal is to create physical communities, starting in the St. Pete area, of 150 to 100 units, and working together, playing together, learning together, entertaining, etc.
Nice. That's even better, with our masks on, probably.
Well, each condo you'll be able to enter from the outside, from the perimeter, and then those who can share or are sequestering can share in the common areas in the middle. So actually our concept would have held up nicely in the midst of the worst of COVID.
Wow, that is wonderful. Absolutely.
Jennifer, what else do you have to ask?
Oh,
And well, let me ask this, Aileen, I keep wanting to say Aileen. Aileen, is there anything that you'd like to share that we didn't ask you about?
Let me think. I think the understanding, this is what I would like to share, because I've spent a lifetime in education, and being in a box and going through rules and hurdles and all of that. And what I'd like to share is that our mission and our vision is to remove those blocks and barriers, and to allow people to learn and grow without feeling that they've got to go to an Ivy League university and go into debt and spend all kinds of money. So that's one thing that I'd like you to know about the Institute, that the mission and the vision was to make information available, and that if you're ready to step in to become whatever it is that you want to bring to the world, that you can find this, that you're able to access those skills without feeling that you've got to spend all of that money on the traditional degree. And then the other is, of course, the global access, that no matter where you live in the world, that you're able to access this knowledge and information. So I think that's probably the international component is important to us as well, is that our goal is hopefully is that maybe in the future there would be little institutes all around the world, and that people could do this themselves, that maybe they decide to form their own institute for leadership and lifelong learning in their countries and do it their way in their language, so that it doesn't have to be this one size fits all or look the same. So just adding that in. Who knows what we'll look like in a year from now or 2 years from now. You might have to schedule another podcast for an update.
For sure. And I think and hope we'll stay connected, because I do see a lot of commonality in our missions.
Yeah. I think what you just said about, is just so beautiful about there's no one size fits all model and access for everybody. And that's what I've always felt about education. I homeschooled my kids when they were little, and they're in their 20s. They haven't yet gone to college. They may never, but I'm okay. Like, they are curious. They can think for themselves. They're good people, and they're doing amazing things in the world. And they follow that, like, that inspiration of what do I want to learn next, and then they figure it out in their own way. And
and I'm so glad you shared that, because I very much felt like I was institutionalized all of my life.
I was, for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So in my head, when I was a 6th grade teacher in Texas, I told students, you've got to work hard. You can't make it unless you have a college degree. Well, now I realized that was not correct. You do not have to have a college degree. Right. You have to have confidence to you don't have to be employed by somebody else, right? You can create your own ability to earn a living if you are driven by a passion and you have something that you can give to the world. You have a service. There you go. And I have all of the degrees in the world, and
same.
Right. So we grew up in that model. College was it, and now, of course, we know we have graduates walking around who are in debt, who have never been able to apply that.
Right. My older daughter's 22, and has her own business as an artist. She's so connected with her genius of what she can give to the world that she's figuring out what she needs when she needs it.
That's it.
Yeah.
And that's what I think it's a roundabout way of expressing it, but that was the vision behind this.
I love that.
Behind this institute. And I really have to, going back to Reverend Temple Hayes, going back to the idea, Victor Hugo's quote that she uses a lot, there is nothing more powerful than all the armies of the world than an idea whose time has come. And we both felt that this was a very divinely inspired idea to bring forth this. And the hope is that more, and I'm sure that that more of these will start to expand and grow. And
Absolutely. I love it.
And you do it at a time when COVID hits and makes it even more relevant. So there are lots of things that are being sped up due to COVID. I think the disassembling of traditional education is one of those, and it's been sped up. And here you come at a time to offer virtual coursework and education at a time that makes it much more available. So good for you.
And the other thing I wanted to add on is, in the traditional model that I came out of, the university system, universities had to, a lot of the cost was of universities, you had to be accredited, faculty had to have specific qualifications and degrees. That does not apply at ILI, the Institute for Leadership and Lifelong Learning. Your experience and who you are is your qualification. And the same applies to our students who are taking our spiritual leadership program. We do not require that they have a bachelor's degree, or we look at the whole person. Some of them do, but it's not a requirement, unlike other programs as well. We don't see the person for the degrees or the letters after their name. It's it's your soul, your spirit, what you've come here to do. And we want to support every individual who comes through our programs to step into that. You say you want to become whatever it is. Well, what is it that's blocking you? What is it that's in here that you think you're not good enough, that you can't do it? So,
yeah. Beautiful. Aileen, we are going to put your contact information and website in our show notes. But for now, the website is illli.org, correct?
That is it.
Okay.
That is it.
Awesome. And Mark, is there anything you want to share about Thrive Co-Living and our website right now?
Sure. You can reach us at thrivecolivingcommunities.org and find out all about what we're doing and where we're heading, and follow the podcast on all of your favorite podcast stations, as well as this one on YouTube, which you've obviously found. So thank you,
right.
Aileen. Thanks so much for being with us. I'll let Jennifer wrap us up.
All right.
Thank you
Well, I
both.
feel like this hour went by incredibly fast, and that we could probably keep talking, but that just means we'll have you back in the future at another time. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining this episode of the Thrive Co-Living podcast and YouTube broadcast. To discover more about our mission and activities, please visit our website at thrivecolivingcommunities.org. There, you can also learn how you can support our creative vision and co-living communities. We also ask that you subscribe to the Thrive Co-Living Communities YouTube channel and/or the Thrive Co-Living Communities podcast. Thanks again for tuning in. We will be back soon.